it also is tough to wrap my head around it for particularly LHS. If we were in a conquest mindset, I would immediately question this ban because I don't think Gala Warlock has a good matchup against Warrior. But if Kin is still bringing this and not banning Warrior, obviously he wants to queue it into something in particular. If it's not Priest, though, I am running out of ideas. I feel like it doesn't line up that well against Druids if they're running even the one Survival of the Fittest. Against Weapon Rogue, I feel like it would get beaten down pretty quickly. It's worth noting, though, that Kin does run the double Acidic Swamp Oozes in here, so that's something that you don't want to tech if you're running this into Priest. So perhaps with this tech, this deck can stand up to Warriors. Perhaps it can stand up to Rogues. Remains to be seen.
I think that's the real cornerstone of the strategy there, is that, yes, this deck can stand up to Rogues with double Swampoos. I don't think I would argue too hard on the other side. With Moarg Artificer, Nether Breaths thrown in there as well, Galakron, there's a huge amount of healing, huge amount of removal, and weapon destruction just is the real cherry on the cake. Whether or not it can beat Warrior with double Ooze is, I think, the real hard spot of the question. Tyler is playing the version of Warrior which has double upgrade, green skin, Krastinov, double wrench caliber. He doesn't, however, have Horde Pillager. So every weapon destruction effect that Kin can use against that Warrior is huge. If he just snipes off both the wrench calibers at the start of the game, it's probably just over in his favor right out the gate.
That could very much be possible. Given that you're Warlock as well, it gives you a little bit more incentive for running tech cards because with that hero power, with the Veiled Worshippers, you can more reliably get to those tech cards compared to running it into in a priest deck, for example. So maybe Kin is onto something that we just completely overlooked. If we're talking about sample size for this deck, we have to also look at Blitzchung's results, which he did not make the bit skeptical, but Kin's record in the Swiss at least was among the better ones. I think he went 5-2, which is better than both Surrender and Possessy did at 4-3.
Yeah, not bad at all, it's got to be said. Lots of different ways that we could explore this lineup, especially on Kin's side. Whereas Tyler's side, I think, again, for the most part, it's just going with the tried and true in terms of his ladder decks that he's been practicing a lot. The Druid, I think we aren't sure if it's the final build that people will be settling on with the double Mount Seller in there, but it's definitely an interesting way to go. And when you can curve Overgrowth into Mount Seller, it's a strong way to start things off for sure.
Absolutely, but speaking of curves, it has pretty much the ideal opener for Mage versus Druid and the Shanvala on top. This is what I'm talking about. And while I would love to advocate playing it on 3 versus Druid, the cram session for 3 draws is also looking extremely juicy. But oh my gosh, Tyler's hand is nuts. Hello?
Yeah, this is pretty much completely illegal on both sides.
Because now, not only was there coin Wild Growth into Overgrowth, there's now Mount Seller Innervate Crystal Power immediately after the ramp happens.
He's toying with it. He's thinking about playing Shanvala. He just saw coin Wild Growth. Like, that screams Overgrowth, especially with a 3-keep hand. He can have an extremely strong read on Overgrowth right now.
That's true. But how likely is the Shanvala to get payoff? Given that he only has the 1 spell in hand right now.
We're going to find out.
Maybe it's not so much about trying to get payoff, but it's just a minion on board that's not Firebrand, which you would waste the spell burst on it. Oh my god.
This hand for Tyler, what is happening?
Don't want to use Brain Freeze to finish the Shanvala activation.
Oh my god.
Okay. Both players popping off very, very hard. Granted, Kin's pop-off is going to happen next turn, and it's going to be in response to a big board. That's very relevant. He'll have targets for Brain Freeze and generated Razor Frost.
Tyler just drew like the best card in his deck, like 3 turns in a row.
Yep. Not denying it. And after this Nature Studies, he'll have an answer for the Shanvala, as long as he plays Crystal Power first or Claw. Oh my gosh. These are terrible beasts, though. Oh my gosh.
Those are terrible beasts.
This is one Arcane Explosion away from going poof.
I mean,
All right.
you
No
gotta pop
hesitation,
off.
Kin.
No
Yeah.
surrender.
No hesitation. Get your cheapest guy. Oh man, these
Whatever,
are not
just
great.
pick one and ignore it.
For Arcane Explosion, take a cram session.
Oh. Oh my god. There's just too much stuff. He needs a 20-card hand.
He really does. I mean, I think you just go because there's still magic tricks to be had. Oh no, not the evocation. I don't think there's time for that. There is just no time.
God. Yeah.
But if you don't go for it, he's just not dealing with this board. So you might go for like a 2-card evocation to give you just one more chance at Arcane Explosion.
Right.
I think he does go for it,
Yeah.
as icky as it is. Or, sure, Mana Cyclone just gives you that many spells anyway, so it does make sense.
He doesn't have any mana left over then. Even if he'd got the Arcane Explosion, he wouldn't have been able to play.
You're right.
I guess that's maybe a little bit too all in. You know, he can clear off most of the board here. Get himself in a decent position, unless Tyler top decks Guardian Animals to sweep the board off the top. What is happening?
I mean, Tyler's just sucking on his lollipop, you know, not in his head. It's just another day at the office. Perfect opener into perfect top deck, but Kin has a hand that can possibly respond. He still has Apprentice and the Evocation. There's just not that much space to go along with it. Can he hold off? There's just too much damage on board, though. There's 19 on board? So he's just dead if he doesn't clear something.
Yeah.
So it kind of has to be Apprentice and mini Evocation, I feel like.
Oh my god, it's really not good, is it?
It's pretty terrible. Looks like he'll just take the 1 draw, try to fish for Magic Trick into Frost Nova.
That's good. Throw that out. 100%.
He was hovering Firebrand now. Sure. Unlikely to clear very much.
Yeah, I'm not convinced by Firebrand. Oh, 4 freezes?
4 freezes followed up by Solarian Prime?
Yep. There's something brewing here.
That's a ticket back into the game.
Oh my
what I
god.
think.
How do you beat Wild Growth, Overgrowth, Mount Seller, 4 beasts, or like 5 beasts you got all at once into Guardian Animals? Impossible.
Wait, why did he Evocation there?
He just wanted more spells to get down Mana Giant, I think, as cheap as possible.
Okay.
He did not find them though, quite obviously.
It felt like a bit of a reach because his next turn is locked up. Prime, almost certainly.
Let's go.
Well, here we go! Okay, pretty good.
Pretty good.
This could be amazing. Not that target though. Not good.
No! Disaster!
Oh my god!
Disaster!
Wait. That went face, Power of Creation, but nothing is frozen. There is 18 on the board. He's just dead.
I mean, what do you even say about that game? Look at Tyler. Like, that's it, Tyler. You suck. You just sit there. You do what you gotta do.
A couple of turns ago, you asked, how do you beat Coin Wild Growth into Overgrowth, into Mount Seller, Innervate, Crystal Power, Bog Beam, Claw with the Nature Studies to deal with your Shenvala? My answer is, you don't.
Yep. Quite simply, that is the dream from Tyler. The Emerald Dream and the Druid Dream. Closing things out very, very cleanly there and taking the win. I think that it was nicely done overall from Kin. I love that he proactively developed the Shenvala, given that he had the strong read on the Overgrowth being in hand. It was just not quite strong enough. Even drawing like 6 cards in a turn with double cram session, still that little bit too slow. Like you said, maybe he could have gone for the line of digging that little bit harder for Arcane Explosion, specifically off of the Evocation in order to clear off the board, because it was already starting to look pretty dire. But I think the more reasonable outcome, or the correct line that he took, was to clear off as much as possible, pray that Tyler has a dead hand, and that he doesn't top deck Guardian Animals off the top, which unfortunately he did.
Yeah, I think Kin just made the most valiant effort he could have and just went for all of the freezes there, even though the second Ray of Frost looked slightly redundant, just to give him the best chance of having Solarian Prime deal with the rest. And sometimes that's just how you play the Mage deck. You have to put your faith into the cards that involve some randomly generated outcomes. Didn't quite pan out for him there, but it can't be denied that Tyler's in a very strong spot now. I don't know what a direct counter cue to Druid should be, especially when Kin's lineup is not particularly aggressive.
Yes, it's going to be a bit of an uphill climb now for sure for Kin, but before we find out whether or not he can complete the comeback despite being 0-1 up against Tyler's Druid, we're going to go to a quick break. The loser of this match sadly will be out of contention for the semi-finals to be played out tomorrow, but the winner will be going up against Possessi for that one final spot. Plenty to play for here on Hearthstone Grandmasters, so you're not going to want to miss a moment. We'll be right back. Grandmasters is the name and Hearthstone is the game. Kin versus Tyler is the match that we have on right now. Elimination match, which of course means the loser is out of contention. And if today has been anything to go by, a Druid taking a win in the first game spells bad news for the player who is on the back foot of that, which is Kin in this instance, losing 0-1 to Tyler's Druid.
It definitely feels that way after we started off with Surrender taking a Druid sweep, and it feels like a lot of people might not necessarily have had Druid on their radar because of that recent nerf to Kael'thas, instead focusing all of their sights on Bomb Warrior. This could have been a weak spot in certain lineups, and we were just talking about how before the break we're not sure what Kin is to queue as his counter queue against Druid. However, even though I feel like on paper Druid should be favored against Warlock, against Druid, every time we see this matchup actually play out, the Warrior seems to take the win.
Against Druid.
That's right.
Yeah, I agree it's a close one. I think the more recent builds of Warrior have a significantly better shot, like we've been hearing, and I've been banging on about time after time. High amount of weapon charges means more bombs, more consistent Dr. Boom activation, and with Corsair Cash already in hand, it is a 2 out of 3 chance that he's going to have a Wrench Caliber ready to go and get his win condition online before Tyler can even start thinking about his own threats.
Yeah, when I was saying that on paper it feels like Druid should be favored against Warrior, that might be outdated information. That was from the beginning of the set. Of course, the lists have changed a lot more. You're talking about how the weapons are more consistent, and they can just go a lot quicker than the Druid pressure gets online. And when it does get online, usually just takes one brawl, one Barrow of Clear, and then the weapons have dealt too much damage. For a hand like this, though, Tyler has threat after threat wave.
Yeah, he does. It's going to take a while, though. I mean, I like your description of just the Barrow of clearing the way for the weapons. It's like that sport they always play in the Olympics where they like sweep in front of the guy who throws the ball on the ice rink. I don't know what it's called.
What?
But...
Oh, sorry. You started with sweep. I was like, that's a sport. And then the guy who throws a ball. I know a lot of sports where guys throw balls.
Yeah, well, no.
And
it's
then
like
on the ice ring, I was like...
It's like, it's on ice, and they're like, it's kind of like bowling, I guess, and they throw like a puck, it kind of is, or like a flat
Hockey?
thing. No, it's not
I don't
hockey.
know.
And there's guys ice skating in front of it who sweep in front of the ice to make sure it goes further, I guess.
I deeply
It's a
regret...
thing! It's a thing, and that's what Warrior is right now, okay?
I deeply regret the second I decided to talk about sports ball, my least knowledgeable subject, during a Hearthstone cast. But in that time, Tyler did pick up Fungal Fortunes to try and get himself a smoother curve. It's still gonna be the Lightning Bloom Guardian Animals all but certainly for the next turn, but he was hoping to maybe pick up another Lightning Bloom so he could curve into Guardian Animals. On average, I think the one discard is the best you can hope for in this matchup, or the most reasonable thing you can hope for in this matchup.
Curling! That's what it's called. That's the sport I'm thinking of. Curling. It is a thing. So, joke's on you.
Cool. That's something I do in my hair. I had no idea that was a sport. Okay, for Tyler, do you prioritize getting the 2 card draws or keeping your Thresher as healthy as possible?
So in terms of the likelihood that it can be cleared, it's fairly high because a single Blade Storm would be able to clear it off.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So the card draw is instead prioritized there. I was looking at it a little bit iffy because of the overflow, but Tyler's immediate problem is this upcoming turn when he'll only have 4 mana. One Innervate could make this a lot easier, Lightning Bloom, or even Overgrowth off the top. So ultimately, I agree with the decision to take the card draw there. For Kin, though, it's just been very, very straightforward. No funny business, no sweeping or getting on an ice rink in this sport. It is just a lot of bombs.
Yeah, he's broken the rules on the general convention of curling by bringing a wrench and is smacking his opponent with it, which is strictly against the spirit of the game, it must be said.
While I mentioned a while ago drawing into Lightning Bloom might fix his curve, it actually didn't.
Right.
Would have unlocked Twilight Runner, but it would have made the next Guardian Animal stuck in hand anyway. But speaking of next Guardian Animals, Tyler has drawn pretty much all of his beasts. I'm looking at the package. Is double Lake Thresher, 1 Teacher's Pet, double Twilight Runner. So there's just the 1 Teacher's Pet in the deck. Yeah.
I think the really interesting talking point here for Tyler is he had a couple of ways, I mean, mainly with Broom, in order to clear off a card from his hand, but chose not to, which I think is in part because Broom is a powerful card here, but also because of specifically that. Staying at 10 cards in hand allows him the potential to overdraw a bomb. That was a great spot by Tyler.
Absolutely huge. And he gets down the Ysera. not able to overflow next turn, but over the course of 2 turns could put down quite a few dragons. Kin picks up Dr. Krastenov, which honestly, I was looking at that as the play this turn alongside Subdue. But Kin instead is going to go for Bladestorm. A little bit surprised by that. At first I was thinking Subdue can hit bigger targets, but the Ysera at that point had very, very little threat to it anyway.
Right. Ooh. Survival being picked up is a very, very big deal for Tyler. Allows him to kind of get that development onto the board without having to use any more minions that we were talking about being very strong against Warrior.
Gets down a decent-sized dragon, but Kin is absolutely racing him down. And now that I look at it again, Kin was probably going Bladestorm while there's 1 minion, and that's the easiest way to get use out of Bladestorm, and then he can curate what Subdue deals with, unlike what Bladestorm does. This turn, we could just see that combo I was talking about on the Nosdorm instead.
I mean, that doesn't seem bad. It's not actively good for Kin if Tyler draws cards, but it's not actively bad either.
Or you could just generate a Captain Greenskin. Gonna take the Krastenov target while it's there, but oh my goodness, this Wrench Caliber just has infinite charges.
Yeah, it's just gonna keep coming and coming.
And now the card draw gets so scary for Tyler. But he needs to draw cards to put together a board that can even help him stay in the game.
Right, and the problem is that he needs to not be at 10 cards so he doesn't overdraw the portals, but he needs to be at 10 cards so he doesn't overdraw the bombs.
There's more dragons than bombs now, but it's not a huge margin.
I don't know if that's even necessarily true anymore. There's only 4 left, right? There's a lot of bombs that have been shuffled in at this point. It's close, if nothing else.
Yeah. Man. The thing is, Tyler also needs to figure out how to piece out his threats, because if it's all one wave, you're so vulnerable to Brawl or Lord Barov. But if he doesn't put enough threat on board to kill Kin in 1 turn, then he's very likely just gonna die to the own bombs in his deck.
I mean, he's looking very likely to die no matter what pretty soon. The combo, however, of Broom plus the Explorer is very, very cute to get back up to 10 health.
11, crucially, with the hero power.
True.
Okay, that means he can afford, technically, to draw 2 more bombs before dying, but it's likely that this Wrench Caliber hit can go face if Kin rips this Brawl, which I absolutely expect him to.
Yeah, in the disaster quote-unquote outcome where the 3/5 sticks, it's not that bad. He can just throw down a upgrade and still just carry on attacking through turn off.
Even though it would heal Tyler a little bit for that turn over the course of the game, it would have just been more damage with the bomb getting shuffled into the deck. This now, though, because a non-threatening minion has survived, we could see Kin go Battle Rage instead to try and fish for something to pair with his Barov if he expects a refill on the next turn. And he very much should expect it, because that's the only way he's losing here. Oh,
that's
1
one
HP. So Tyler now needs to generate taunts to survive.
Right.
And hero power does nothing with the health total, so
Teacher's Pet?
Turn?
You can go Guardian Annals for the Teacher's Pet, right? Hypothetically stay alive?
But then he doesn't set up lethal on the backswing, and he absolutely needs to win next turn if he has any chance. Oh, it's Overflow Rave. Trying to set up a board using the dragons instead.
Oh, he gets Crystal Power.
That's a 1 in the deck. Oh my gosh! Overdrawn bomb. Huge.
Big deal. It has to happen. He has to get very, very lucky with the way these bombs come in the next few turns.
And he's thinking about holding the crystal power because he can stay at 10 cards. And he's technically not dead to just 1 weapon swing if he goes up to 7 HP. Wait, how big is this wrench caliber in terms of attack? Oh, he's just dead now to the...
It's just lethal.
I thought he was gonna hero power. Because there was still another upgrade in the deck, right?
Yeah, I mean, I can understand why he would go for it that way, to try and fill up his hand instead and also allow for more draws next turn, but it was a little bit of a weird way to close things out at the end there. Obviously, he didn't expect the generated Captain Grokkinskin to be his demise at the end.
There's one natural one in the deck. There's upgrade, though.
Yep.
Obviously, Tyler was accounting for that. I'm just not sure if he should have been valuing the 1 extra draw or 1 extra generate Mount Seller because of the mana he freed up more than the 1 HP from hero power. Granted, he had a very small margin to win the game anyway, should that happen, because in order to set up lethal, he would have to create space in his hand so he could still draw a bomb later on. But I think at the very least, it was good recognition that he needed to stay at 10 cards for that very last turn.
Yes, yeah, that was the important thing there. It was, I think, good understanding, overdrawing 1 bomb at the start, another one later on, potentially setting up for overdrawing many bombs towards the end of that game there. Because, yeah, Crystal Power could have just allowed him to take extra damage with the bombs that he drew in the end. So it does mean that he has to switch over to the Rogue. I do think Tyler is fairly confident in this matchup, though, because the switch over to the higher weapon output version of Warrior has, I think, helped the matchup for Rogue, given that they can just be the more aggressive class out of the two.
I just have to rewire all of my matchup understanding in Hearthstone that now aggro Rogue can beat Warrior that has Brawl in it, because the shape of Warrior is just so different, and so is the shape of Rogue. Today's Warrior just seems to be getting there consistently against Druid as well. But if there's any way for Warrior to be defensive, Kin's opening hand was absolutely it. He tempos out the Armor Smith. I think that is great recognition. You were talking about how Armor Smith Risky Skipper as a combo hardly gets the time to be played anymore. And so just playing out the Armor Smith early to possibly get some trades or force some skill if Tyler wants to trade other minions makes a ton of sense.
Yeah, I think in this specific situation, I really like the play of going for the Armor Smith. I think mainly because Tyler isn't playing the hooked Scimitar. I've been hit with coin Scimitar against my tempo Armor Smith before, and it is not a good feeling at all. Whereas here, if Tyler wants to go like coin Eviscerate plus 1 drop, you're pretty happy with that, because that's an inefficient use of his mana in the early turns.
I'm a little bit surprised that we actually didn't see second Armor Smith trade in the 1-2 and then just go Shield Slam for 2 there for maximum tempo. Maybe I got a little bit too all in because I saw how well the first Armor Smith worked out. But I think there was some real potential. The 1-4 stat line is surprisingly...
That's fair. Saving 1, I think, is a pretty big deal in terms of sweeping up the board. He didn't know that he was going to get Anchor or Risky Skipper by extension anytime soon. But if he did get one, he really, really, really wants to have at least 1 Armor Smith in hand.
That's fair.
I think it's close.
Well, Kin with the upgrade off the top is an absolutely huge draw, so now he can get rid of the Toxin Blade as well. Question if he wants to lay down the Corsair immediately, though. I really like that you hold on to this. There's just so much to be said for the power of playing minions all at the same time, rather than one at a time against specifically Rogue that really wants to hit things with their weapons or just sap it. But if it all comes down at once, especially with the Skipper draw, it can be much more problematic.
Yeah, I mean, I agree they should be playing Asia Pacifically in this matchup, but I don't really see what that has to do with it.
Means really fast. That's when it means to play Pacifically. And they have been so far. Not disappointed whatsoever.
They have. I think it's good recognition. As you said, it allows you to go for one fell swoop where you get a board that's difficult to clear, but also gain a whole bunch more armor, which is the big ticket here, I think.
He gets off a very powerful Battle Rage as well.
Mm-hmm.
It's not often anymore that we see the Skipper package come to fruition, but he's drawn the right half of his deck for this match. You don't want to necessarily see all of the Wrench caliber upgrades when the Rogue has gotten off to a very quick start.
Tyler's hand here, sorry, however, is no slouch in its own right. Dr. Krastenov looking pretty powerful here in terms of clearing off that little bit from the board, free cutting class as well.
Yeah, it's just annoying that he can't deal with the Armorsmith Risky Skipper unless he wants to send a weapon charge into them. We could see
many options.
I mean, no matter which way I slice it, I feel like the Krasinov has to come down just so the weapon can also get a swing through this turn.
Well, I was going to agree with you, and I think it's still probably correct, but this is an unbuffed self-sharpening sword so far, which means he could save the Krasinov to go with the second one, which would get the Deadly Poisons, the Vulpera Toxin Blades as well, just for absolute maximum damage output. So he was maybe closer than it first appeared.
Yeah, that's definitely worth considering, but if you break the weapon this turn, you're pretty much committed to re-equipping the weapon next turn, whereas I think Tyler maybe wants to get the Steel Dancer down on the already buffed weapon, and then use the remaining mana to re-equip Sharpening Sword.
Have to imagine hoping to find Risky Skipper here off of the weapon swing.
I mean, Tyler took very painful trade into the Skipper just to make sure it wasn't already on board to clear off all these minions he left at 1 health. But there's a chance Kin whiffs on the Skipper off of this because he runs Captain Greenskin. So, sorry, I think I was looking at the wrong list.
Wow. See here instead, Kin overwriting his weapon. I mean, we were talking about the counter-lethal potential that Warrior has access to. I didn't think he'd go to such measures to almost completely overwrite all of his mana on that turn just to equip the weapon.
Yeah, I'm surprised to see that. And if that was the game plan in mind, then Tyler generated the most defensive 6-drop to put a stop to that plan. However, with a pretty clean Deathwing, can also sweep up the other half of this card group with his Wrench caliber, but it very much looks like Tyler is winning the race for damage. Deadly Poison on the second self-sharpening sword will come in huge.
Yeah, I mean, he can just go for Secret Passage as well, should he want to find the Toxin Blades, anything that he needs to go along with this in order to get the damage there.
The 12-2 is scary, not gonna lie. But does it merit a sap? I guess it does.
Do you want to give another shout out? Sapping Deathwing.
Once per cast is more than enough.
More than enough, agreed.
Yeah.
Well, it's kind of an awkward Deathwing, right? Because if it does come down, you're facing the 50% chance of just tanking an extra 4 damage here, right on the Death Rattle.
It makes sense. And Tyler was just saying, despite him giving a bunch of value to Kin, if Kin spends his pretty much the entire turn replaying Deathwing, then it fits well with Tyler's game plan, which is just kill Kin. He has these 2 secret passages to support that game plan.
Talking about these powerful plays there, that's 3 bombs in the deck once this last swing comes through, which of course means Blast Master Boom, ready to go with or without Risky Skipper / Bladestorm next turn to activate it. Pretty strong.
Not sure if Kin was counting there, shaking his head. I think he did not want to play the Skipper, but he did not want to overdraw. I think we could have seen just hero power there instead of the cutting class. And by playing the Skipper to not overdraw, that removes the Skipper Boom immediate play, but there's now just Boom Bladestorm if he wants it.
Yes, exactly.
Right. Passage number 1.
Yeah, plenty of mana to hit the powerhouse plays, be it Jandis, Steel Dancer, whatever he needs to go with.
Wow. More charges on the weapon looks great to me. I wonder if Tyler ever thinks about Sap here just to make an overdraw. Nah, that's way too fancy.
Yeah, I want to get
It's a
down
1 cost minion.
a 4 mana, 7 cost minion.
Well,
Ooh.
this brawl is looking somewhat necessary. Wait, the Barov obviously goes off immediately with the Spectre.
Which means 50% chance to have to tank an extra 4 damage.
Or, okay, bad Lillian.
Yeah, very, very good for Kin there. He pretty much needed that to happen, I think, to have any chance.
But now, he's facing down a powerful weapon, but it seems there's no other defensive option left. He can't just hero power there. Yeah, so he's just going for the boom. I absolutely love it. Oh. So stab, eviscerate, passage.
Yep. Very, very likely to find lethal, I think, in one way or another here.
I mean, what's left if you've played both eviscerates? Even if you're not likely to find lethal, it has to happen.
Yeah.
Because the rest of the hand is doing nothing.
+2 buff doesn't get there on the weapon anymore either.
He's played double deadly as well. Maybe Toxin Blade. Oh no! Oh, miscounted the deadly poison and the eviscerate. Wait, I could have sworn we'd seen that already, but maybe it just got shuffled back into the deck. But Tyler with the BM gonna self-destruct himself a little bit before blowing up Kin. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, nicely done there by Tyler to close things out. I think it did get a little bit confusing with the secret passages, drawing the eviscerates, but then shuffling them back in the end. But nicely done there by Tyler, I think, once again, demonstrating the weirdness, the unique play style that you need to employ with the weapon rogue that is really just very unique to this particular deck at the moment, and also showing why it's just a pretty good matchup against Warrior. As long as you hit the self-sharpening swords in some kind of a timely fashion, you're just in a pretty good spot.
Yeah, I have to agree. Watching how that played out, there just wasn't that much early game response from the Warrior that was efficient enough to get there. I wouldn't be surprised to see later iterations of Warrior include weapon removal, just because weapons are just so ubiquitous in the meta now, whether it's from Rogue or the Wrench Calibers from Warrior or the Soul Demon Hunters. If you're going to be calling a Warrior a control deck, I think it needs to be running weapon removal in the near future. We're also likely to see more tech cards next week because that will be in Specialist.
That is correct. That's going to be an entirely different kettle of fish. I don't even want to start thinking about that quite yet, just because of how crazy it will all be. But for right now, speaking of crazy decks, Kin with his Galakron Warlock, despite a couple of expansions ago, this being a very common deck to be seeing in the metagame, I think now it's a very pocket bring, to say the least. You are hypothesizing that it would be to counteract Priest before it was swiftly banned out of Tyler's lineup in the first place. The real question, I think, is whether or not with the double acidic Swampus, it can get the job done against the Warrior and the Rogue from Tyler.
This to me just feels like a preview of how good is weapon removal in this meta. This is not a card that you naturally want to be running in the list, but it has very good reasons for being there. We laid it out previously, and I think this is a hand that Kin absolutely wants to see. The Ooze, ready to go, has an Invoke card, has Dark Skies to deal with small minions, and has card draw active after he draws a second Invoke.
So
also worth noting that there is, of course, the Moarg Nether Breath package in here, which will definitely come in clutch if it is drawn at the right time against this rogue.
Yeah, it's just all working together very nicely, this Warlock deck, I think, to hypothetically be taking down the rogue. It really is just missing, I think, a powerful way to lock down the board whilst also clearing your opponent's board at the same time. The kind of tempo swings are a little bit slow. even if the removal and the healing is very powerful.
We're definitely seeing the slower end of Kin's deck, where he does run Zephyrus Alexstrasza with for the later end of the deck, just like you would see in Quest Warlock previously. And he's just gonna play down the Zephyrus here because he didn't want to coin out the Dragonflight Cultist there. We could be seeing the world's wimpiest Dark Skies. But I don't think it's bad.
I mean, we don't think it's bad because we can see the hand, right? It's. Do you think if you could cover up Tyler's hand, you'd still think it was the correct play here?
Well, seeing Tyler's hand, I think you do want to hold on to the Dark Skies because it's a minion curve.
Oh, okay.
But I feel like there are tons of rogue hands where they don't hit this type of play, and it's a bunch of weapon buffs. So if you clear the first board and their follow-up buff a weapon, then you're very happy to play Ooze instead. This particular hand from Tyler, though, is very minion heavy, and it feels very effective against what your opponent might normally expect.
Yeah, he's got himself a turn or two of leverage where he can just go Jandis, probably go Greyheart Eviscerate on 6 if he finds Stealth Minion, brilliant. But he does eventually need to find a weapon or weapon buff if he's going to make this matchup.
What makes something real?
Guys, of course, being very good against Jandis.
Oh, yes.
Okay, no mind games to be had here whatsoever. Size of minion.
Or are there?
When did
Ponder
Raven
on
join the
that one.
APAC broadcast?
Riddle me this, Gia. There's no follow-up. There is no mind games.
Alright, first Dark Skies expended. Oh, that is the perfect follow-up for Tyler. And even though we can see this Ooze, he's just sitting on an Eviscerate. Kin used an Arcane Breath or Nether Breath already. Getting scary.
Yeah. I mean, it's obviously the only play that you have access to as Tyler, and it's the only play that you have access to as Kin. I mean, upon saying that, he can figure out whether he wants to go the Netherwing or Dark Skies or whatever else along with it. But the point being, the weapon can be destroyed, and Tyler is back to kind of having to find something extra. These Steel Dancers aren't going to win him the game just as 4/4s.
Yeah, I think Kin here has a legitimate decision to just play the Veiled Worshipper or Tempo alongside the Ooze.
Okay.
You leave up the 3/3 is the big problem here. So using the coin like this actually doesn't really shut anything too important off. I was kind of prioritizing holding onto coin because of Alexstrasza, but he might not even have the time if you leave up the Volterra Oxen Blade there. Mandarisa not getting any additional value.
Yeah,
I think Tyler's list has the Wand Thieves, so you can't pop off with Mage Secrets.
Yeah, the question is really just whether you go face or whether you clear the Ooze, and it's a game deciding choice right there. Obviously, if he goes face, it's a guaranteed board clear, and very likely he won't be sticking board control for a long time to come. But if he trades it, a single bit of healing could just put Kin well out of range of ever being bursted down. So close, I think.
But the only bit of healing is the one remaining Nether Breath. There's also Morgs to be scared of.
Yeah.
But we're not seeing it in Kin's hand. Zephyrus very far off from being active on average. And Kin, the alternative way of clearing with the Devoted Maniac plus Rain of Fire, because both of the minions from Tyler were for attack, you would end up killing off your Crazed Netherwing anyway. So he went for the Dark Skies instead to maintain board presence.
Whoa. Lady Vash is kind of insane. Obviously, there's the spell damage right now, which is tempting to just unleash your Eviscerate while you have it. But Vash Prime is nothing to sniff at.
So many options.
True. Just draw your secret passages. But it's very unlikely to get the Vash Prime anytime soon. If you're Tyler, I feel like you just kind of vomit your hand.
Pretty much.
The Dread Corsair, and then swing dagger to the face.
I must choose soon.
There's the matter of Plague of Flames is an argument for dealing with
Yeah.
the minions.
It's Plague of Flames, and it's also just the fact he's seen so much removal. He's seen 2 Dark Skies, he's seen Crazed Netherwing, he's seen Nether Breath, so much stuff coming through turn after turn. But Twisting Nether, it looks like at the final hurdle will be enough to keep Kin alive for one more crucial turn before Alexstrasza can come down.
That top deck was huge here, but for Tyler, this is perfect as well. Kin hates to see it. 3 damage,
Oh my
5
God.
damage. Not lethal this turn, but that sword is sticking around. And so are 2 3/3s.
Blood and plunder.
I mean, it's almost just dead, even if he plays Alexstrasza. It just needs that tiny little bit more for him to just be dead on the spot.
I mean, he'd be at 3, whether or not he plays the Alex. Can heal back up to 15, but there's already 12 showing on the board. So Kin is just praying for taunts off of this.
Give me a
Galathron.
taunt or a rush, anything. That's something. That is something.
It's a taunt, but a piece of garbage alongside it. And Tyler rips a stealth! Cutting class! Okay, that has to be it. That has to be it.
Consider this.
That is it. Dr. Krasnov on
Yeah.
its own will be
Uh-huh.
enough to close out the game.
Right.
It
Of course.
was so close at the final hurdle, but Kin, even with his double acidic swamp ooze tech Galakrond Warlock, it's still not enough. Bit of a mouthful to get out there, but Tyler 3-1 getting a couple wins with the Rogue at the end to turn things around. Looking very, very strong. And while I've been critical of his list, kind of critical of Rogue in general, I've got to say, it has been performing today undeniably. I think I may have been unfairly harsh to the deck at the start. It's definitely starting to prove itself, not only in the aggro matchups, but in the control matchups as well.
And for me, I just feel really sad that we haven't seen this Galakrond Warlock do what it's been doing for Kin. Obviously, to make it to the top 8, Kin has been putting in some results with this deck. I
Yeah.
think he took a sweep over Surrender with it at some point in the Swiss. So far, though, it just seemed very lackluster, even though we've seen Kin had pretty good curves here and there. Against a specific matchup, of course, you're not necessarily looking for curves so much as constant removal. But when you're needing to tap to hit that removal so consistently, a lot of the time you won't even have the chance to play it before the rogue can kill you off. And even though the one ooze came down there, if it's not just weapon removal and it also has to be healing, it feels like if you don't get the taps in, it just feels like one step short.
Yeah, it's a complicated deck for sure, and sadly, we won't be seeing it again from this week from Kin. He may be bringing it back next week in Specialist if he wants to, but some rather large part of me does doubt whether or not he'll be going for Galakrond Warlock in the Specialist week. Right now, though, we of course need to set up our decider match, the final match here today for Asia Pacific, to find out who is going through to the semifinals along with Surrender tomorrow. Going to be Possessi from Japan up against Tyler, representing Vietnam, of course. And it's going to be a very, very close one indeed. 2 different strategies, the Mage and the Demon Hunter for Possessi, the Druid and the Rogue as the difference for Tyler. Very, very cool match, and I cannot wait to jump into things. Will Possessi be able to get another win over Tyler today, or will Tyler get his revenge to go through to the semifinals? We'll find out after